What if I told you humanity's greatest strength isn't its technology, but its terrifying willingness to do whatever it takes to survive, even if it means turning entire planets to glass? In a galaxy full of cautious civilizations, one species refuses to play nice when the stakes are extinction. This is not just a story, it's a warning. And it all begins with a gate that should have never reopened. If you're new here, make sure to subscribe to the channel and show a thumbs up. By liking the video, it really helps us keep telling stories that matter. Now, let's jump into the story. Admiral Bryn Aristal stood in the center of Solstice Hall, a quiet storm behind his gray eyes. Around him, the curved chamber buzzed with the faint hum of shielded data walls and dim ceiling lights that mimicked starlight. The hall wasn't just a room, it was the heart of the Galactic Council, a place where decisions shaped the fate of billions. But today, the usual sense of calm and order was gone. Representatives from dozens of species scaled, skinned, feathered, and otherwise, in silence, each waiting to hear what had brought the Valthiran Admiral across 7 star systems without warning. He looked at them not as individuals, but as a wall of wide, blinking eyes, each trying to guess what horror could make a man like him look so tired. Bryn pressed a control at his wrist. The lights dimmed further, and the central display flickered to life. A spinning mass of stars and coordinates zoomed outward, centering on a single dot, Sector 7X Tau, near the Xarian dead zone. He didn't speak yet. He let the hologram hang in the air like the calm before a solar storm. "There's been an activation," he said finally, his voice deep, level, and without ceremony. "An old hypergate. One we believed was broken, sealed, or forgotten." The room rustled with tension. Hypergates were relics from before the Alliance. Few still functioned. The ones that did were heavily regulated. This one had sat cold and silent for over 1,000 years until 3 days ago. The display zoomed in, showing a broken crescent-shaped structure lighting up with unnatural pulses. We thought it was a fluke, a power spike, maybe. But within 4 hours, it began transmitting coordinates. Not to us, not to the Council, to Earth. That caught their attention. Earth, humanity, the wild card in their otherwise delicate deck. Bryn tapped again. A new display bloomed, showing a massive fleet. Sleek, angular ships forming tight rows like an armored orchestra. Dozens of carriers, command ships, and dreadnoughts, humankind's military calling card. All deployed within 6 hours of the signal. This is the 3rd Terran response fleet. Their destination is the gate. Someone in the audience scoffed a low, clicking sound from the Chirali representative. This is madness. No request for aid, no consultation. Why would they send a fleet before asking what the signal meant? Bryn didn't flinch, because they already knew. A murmur spread. That wasn't procedure. That was fear. That was preparation. "We don't know what the gate leads to," Bryn continued, "but they do. We traced internal communications intercepted through Valthiran neutral satellites. The humans didn't just send a fleet, they sent a message. To their colonies." A single phrase repeated across every channel. He hesitated, not for effect, but because he wasn't sure how to say it without sounding dramatic. He read it anyway. "All measures are now permitted. The shadows return." Silence fell like a shroud. Not one species among them understood the full meaning, but the tone, the speed, and the urgency behind the words chilled everyone. They'd seen what humanity considered measured responses in the past. A quiet voice spoke up. It was Rella Varn, the youngest intelligence analyst in the Council's advisory team. Her pale hair framed a thoughtful expression. "Admiral, what does overkill mean to them?" Bryn looked at her and didn't smile. "It means they're scared." That word "scared" did more damage than any fleet. Humans were not easily shaken. When diplomacy failed, they often became the hammer. Brutal, efficient, and unrelenting. But fear? That wasn't something you saw from them. Not openly. Not like this. He gestured, and the display shifted again. This isn't the first time. During the Battle of Siren's Verge, human forces were sent to deal with a bioweapon outbreak. It was spreading fast. Most species would have quarantined the planet, waited for containment. The humans didn't. They dropped fusion payloads into the mantle, set the sky on fire, killed everything twice over. And when we asked them why, their commander answered, "Because once wasn't enough." Gasps echoed. Disbelief, horror, quiet, growing respect. They destroyed a planet too. Saved 3 nearby colonies. A terrible cost, but the virus didn't spread. Not even one cell. Rella spoke again, softer now. So this is what they do when they're afraid. Bryn nodded. They overreact. They overcommit. They overkill. He walked toward the projection, placing a hand inside the glow of the human fleet's image. You call it excessive. I once did too. But the more I see of them, the more I wonder if it's not just power or arrogance. Maybe. They've already faced something we haven't. Something that taught them survival is a story written by the bold, not the careful. No one replied. Even the most cynical delegate sat still, weighing those words. The gate is opening, Bryn finished. And if they're this scared, maybe we should be too. The lights in the hall rose slowly, but no one moved. The image of humanity's answer hung in the air, silent, heavy, and prepared to burn the stars if necessary. Rella Varn sat quietly in the dim glow of the archive chamber, her fingers moving across the smooth surface of a data console. Her young face reflected the cold blue light of a dozen floating holoscreens, each playing fragments of an event. No. One in the Galactic Council liked to talk about the Glass War. Official records called it a containment operation. Historians labeled it regrettable. But among those who knew the truth, it had another name. The day humanity set fire to a world. Just to be safe. The planet's name was Noreal, once a beautiful ocean-covered moon orbiting a gas giant. In the Yaris system, teeming with life, Noreal had been a haven for peaceful settlements and scientific outposts. But when the virus arrived, something fast, clever, and utterly alien panic spread like the infection itself. Council scientists proposed quarantine zones. Engineers raced to construct orbital barriers. Diplomats pleaded for more time, not the humans didn't wait. Rella blinked as one of the screens shifted to a faded image. A Terran fleet hanging above Noreal's glistening blue curve. It looked peaceful, almost beautiful. And then, without ceremony, the footage changed bright flashes, unnatural red light streaking through the atmosphere, and the ocean boiling away in minutes. The surface of the planet cracked, shimmered, and then hardened into a smooth, glass-like shell. There was no tactical elegance, no surgical strike. It was a purge. She felt her stomach twist. Even though she'd read about it a dozen times, seeing it was different. The silence after the last explosion was the worst part. No sound, no motion, just a lifeless, gleaming ball where life had once danced. A voice from the archive's internal AI played next, flat and formal. Operation Clearwater. Mission complete. Threat neutralized. Total loss of planetary biosphere. 100%. Behind her, Ked Joran entered the chamber, his long coat trailing behind him like a shadow. He was a former war correspondent, one of the few civilians allowed to witness human operations up close. His hair had long since gone gray, and his eyes carried the weight of someone who'd seen too much and survived out of sheer spite. "You watching Noreal again?" he asked, his voice hoarse. Rella nodded slowly, trying to understand what kind of species answers a virus with planet-wide sterilization. Ked walked closer, not looking at the screens. He'd seen them too many times. The kind that knows hesitation can cost more than lives. It can cost futures, she frowned. But they didn't even try our protocols. The containment shields, the stasis fields, we had options. Ked turned to her, folding his arms. And what if they'd failed? What if that virus had jumped? Systems? They weren't just saving themselves, Rella. They were saving every other species that didn't even know they were in danger. One of the screens changed again, this time showing a man in a dark, battered uniform, Captain Halden. His image was grainy, but his eyes were clear. He was giving his final transmission, standing aboard a station above Noreal moments before it fell. "We never meant to be monsters," he said, voice steady. "But if we must become one to save, 1,000,000,000 lives we will." He didn't cry. He didn't apologize. He only nodded once before the feed cut to static. Rella felt something strange stir in her chest. Not admiration, not horror. Something between the two, like realizing the monsters in the dark were the same people who built your fire and stood. "Watch while you slept." Soren Mai, the station's lad technologist, appeared next to them, carrying a small datapad. His wide eyes were always half lost in thought, but now they were sharp. "I found something buried in the incident files. Not public data. This came from deep Terran channels. It was marked restricted by something called Protocol Ashfall." Ked raised a brow. "Ashfall? Emergency Override Doctrine," Soren said. "It's only activated when a threat is deemed species extinctive across multiple systems. It allows Terran Command to bypass the Council entirely." Rella's breath caught. So they didn't act without warning. They acted because they had to. Soren nodded. The virus on Noreal, it wasn't native. It didn't mutate. It was engineered. And humans had seen it before, centuries ago, in a different galaxy. They called it the Veil, a pathogen that doesn't just destroy life, it erases it. No memories, no remains, no digital traces. It consumes identity. Ked let out a low whistle, and they knew it was back. Rella stood slowly, looking back at the final still frame of Noreal, a lifeless crystal sphere suspended in space. So they made sure it couldn't spread, even if it meant erasing beauty. Soren tapped his pad, sending the last bit of data to the console. It was a message, logged just before the operation ended. A private line from Halden to Earth Command. 5 words, simple, heavy. We held the line, again. For a long moment, none of them spoke. The war was decades past, but its echo rang louder than ever. It wasn't just about destruction. It was about the terrifying clarity with which humanity acted when no one else dared. And now, with the gate reactivated and the Terrans mobilizing once more, that clarity had returned. The stars above Virella Station shimmered like cold fireflies as the hypergate came alive for the first time in over 10,000 years. Located at the edge of known space, near a black dwarf sun with no name, the gate pulsed with a deep blue glow that seemed to hum through the bones of the station itself. High above the desolate system, Admiral Bryn Aristal stood at the observation deck, hands behind his back, eyes fixed on the impossible. Beside him stood Leth Mora, the human liaison to the Galactic Council. He was younger than most expected. Soft-spoken, polite, always composed. But Bryn had learned not to mistake quiet for weakness. Leith had eyes that had seen things, and a tone that never shook, even in rooms full of generals. Today, his usual calm felt more like restraint. The gate was massive, wider than most planetary rings, with runes and plates etched into its structure, in languages no one had spoken in ages. And now it was waking up, pieces sliding into place, with perfect, eerie silence. Lights blinked in a sequence that hadn't been recorded in millennia. But Earth knew the pattern. The humans had responded before anyone else, launching a fleet that had arrived 2 full days before the council could even agree on a plan. Bryn glanced sideways at Leith. Your people brought half a navy. Leith didn't smile. It's only a quarter. Bryn raised an eyebrow. Is that supposed to be comforting? Leith looked at the gate, his expression unreadable. No. In orbit around the gate, human ships floated like giants hulking dreadnoughts, mobile command centers, and rows of cruisers bristling with weapons that made seasoned tacticians uneasy. But they didn't fire. They didn't posture. They waited down in the station's command room. High Steward Varro N was not so calm. The council elder was pacing, wings tucked tightly against his back. His species, the Seralith, were known for their long lives and long memories, and Varro's had both. This is not how it's supposed to be, he muttered, voice cracking. This gate was sealed during the scouring. It should not exist. We should not be here. Relevarn stood beside him, trying to balance her respect for the elder with her rising frustration. And yet, here we are. The gate is active. The humans are ready. We're still arguing about protocols. Varro turned, his large black eyes glistening. Do you understand what lies beyond that thing? Rella stared at the slowly rotating gate. No, but I think the humans do. Later that cycle, Bryn and Rella were granted access to one of the Terran command vessels. It was called Midnight's Oath, and it looked like a predator forged from shadows and starlight. Inside, everything was quiet, efficient, almost too clean. Human officers moved with the sharpness of people who expected everything to go wrong. At any second, they were led to a chamber deep in the ship's core. There, a massive holographic display showed something that made Rella's breath catch. It was a map of the local galaxy. Then the image zoomed out. Another galaxy appeared beside it. Then another, and another. 27 in total, each one, marked with red slashes and encoded notes. Bryn leaned forward. What are we looking at? An officer replied without emotion. These are previous contact points. Gates like this one. All destroyed or abandoned. Rella turned. You've seen this before? Leith entered the room behind them. Yes, we've run from it before, too. Bryn frowned. What is it? Leith paused. We don't know what to call it. The earliest records name it the silence, not because it doesn't make sound, but because it erases it. Wherever it spreads, stars go dim. Voices vanish. Planets stop responding. It doesn't kill the way we understand death. It unravels. Rella's voice was quiet. And your people fought it? Leith nodded. We tried diplomacy first, then fire, then evacuation. But eventually, we learned. You can't talk to silence. You can only hold the line. He pointed at the gate. That one leads to the original system where the silence was first detected. We sealed it and left. We hoped it would stay closed. Forever. Bryn turned toward the display. And now it's open again. Yes. Rella asked the question everyone feared. Why now? Leith didn't answer immediately. Then he spoke softly. We think it's looking for us. For a long time, no one moved. The silence of the room felt thick, almost alive. Outside the window, the gate pulsed brighter. The humans were ready. Not eager, not proud, just prepared. In a way that spoke of scars and experience. They didn't come with celebration. They came like firefighters to a house they'd seen burn before. And still, no one could say if it would be enough. As they left the chamber, Bryn glanced at Rella. What does it take to make a species prepare this much? She didn't answer. She was still thinking about the maps. About 27 galaxies, each marked with loss. Each carrying a warning. Each silenced before anyone else knew to listen. And now, humanity was listening again. Waiting. Watching. Because the gate didn't. just leads somewhere unknown. It led back. The air inside the old Terran research station felt heavier than normal. Not from gravity. It was the same standard pull as any orbital outpost, but from the weight of what was hidden there. Bryn Aristal and Rella Varn stepped into the main archive chamber, boots echoing on metal floors, the silence pressing in around them. There was no crew here, no movement, just machines running on automated systems, keeping the lights on and the secrets locked down. VEL-9, the station's historian. AI activated as they entered. Its voice was smooth and calm, like someone reading a bedtime story without realizing it was about monsters. Welcome to Contingency Archive, Alpha Theta. Access granted, Level 6. Begin playback? Rella gave a small nod. Begin. The central display hummed to life, projecting a massive galactic map. One by one, galaxies lit up in sequence, each one glowing faintly before dimming to black. 27 total. Bryn stared at the dark spheres. These are the other galaxies? Yes, VEL-9 replied. All once inhabited. All now classified as silent. I didn't explain what silent meant. It didn't need to. The message was clear. These were not empty galaxies by accident. Something had made them that way. Rella stepped closer, her fingers trembling slightly as she scrolled through the logs. There were notes, scans, half-finished reports, and one phrase repeated over and over. Anomaly. Memory degradation confirmed. What does that mean? She asked. VEL-9's lights dimmed for a moment, as if considering its answer. It means what was lost cannot be remembered. Not just lives or buildings, but names, identities, even languages. The affected regions were not destroyed. They were erased. Bryn felt a chill roll down his spine. And you think it's coming here? VEL-9 responded immediately. It already has. Another file opened, showing an old Terran colony long thought abandoned. Satellite footage showed buildings still standing, machines still humming, but no people. No signs of struggle, no decay. It was as if life had simply stopped. A timestamp in the corner revealed the footage was less than 2 months old. Rella whispered, "They never told us." "No," Bryn agreed. "They didn't." VEL-9 continued. The decision to remain silent was strategic. Most species are not prepared to understand what cannot be seen, fought, or reasoned with. The silence is not an enemy in the traditional sense. It does not speak. It does not bargain. It does not invade. It simply spreads, one spark at a time. Another clip played grainy footage of a small crew on a remote outpost. At first, they laughed, worked, recorded data. Then, one by one, they began forgetting. Names, faces, where they were, what they were doing. One crew member stared into the camera, crying, but unable to say why. Then the screen went blank. Rella looked away. VEL-9 spoke again, softer now. Captain Myra Talon was the last to leave that station. Before she did, she transmitted a message. Final words. The AI played the recording. The captain looked tired. Her face was pale, eyes sunken. Behind her, parts of the station flickered. To anyone who hears this, the danger isn't just death. It's being forgotten. It's being undone. I can't remember my sister's name. I wrote it on my hand, and now it's just smudges. We ran, we hid, but it's still coming. And if it reaches Earth, it won't stop there. Her image. Cut out. For several minutes, the room was silent. Bryn finally spoke. "Why are you showing us this now?" VEL-9 replied, "Because the gate is open. Because your people must choose. Pretend this isn't happening, or prepare like the Terrans have." A new file opened, labeled Project Lantern. It contained designs for containment fields, signal dampeners, memory vaults technology far beyond anything the Council had approved. Earth had been building defenses for centuries, quietly, desperately, not for war, but for remembrance. The humans are trying to hold on, VEL-9 said, not to power, to memory, to what makes them them. Rella stepped back, overwhelmed. So they've been running all this time? Yes, said the AI. Running, fighting, and every time they think they're safe, it finds a way back. Bryn turned to Rella. This is why they react the way they do. Why they act so fast. So harsh. It's not pride. It's fear. No, Rella said, voice firming. It's responsibility. The last file opened automatically. A single image. A child's drawing, scanned and stored from a refugee vessel. A sun. A tree. 3 stick figures holding hands. Below it, in crooked handwriting. To the next ones. We hope you never see what we saw. Bryn swallowed hard. VO9 dimmed its lights one last time. The silence is not a storm. It is the absence of light after the stars go out. The Terrans have seen that future, and they refuse to let it come again. Outside, the stars continued to shine. But for how long, no one could say.